Hello everybody, my name is Jamie and this is my assignment. I'm going to be doing it on North Korea and globalization to build a better relationship. So to learn about North Korea a little bit more, it currently has a population of 25,132,098 people. The religions used are Buddhism, Confucianism, Korean shamanism, and there is a small minority of Christians. As far as the political stance, they still are under a communist ruling, but mostly run as a democratic party. And of course, their current leader is Kim Jong-un, who we know has been causing a lot of issues lately. So to learn a little bit more about him, he was born in 1983. Kim Jong-un is the third leader of the Kim dynasty. He took over in 2011 after his father died from a heart attack. And since then, Kim Jong-un has been sending a lot of threats, and it's been giving us a lot of mixed signals about the missile program. In 2013, he executed his mentor because he thought his mentor was attempting to overthrow him. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how things run over there. And in 2016, he called for the very first Congress of the Working Party in almost 4 decades. So why is it a current threat? Well, Korea has been one of the most prominent problems in the U.S. foreign policy post-Cold War period. They currently have an active biological, chemical, and nuclear weapon program that actually began in the 1950s with the cooperation from the Soviet Union. North Korea is estimated to have a chemical weapon production capability up to 4,500 metric tons during a typical year, but can also produce up to 12,000 tons during a period of a crisis. On January 6th, it announced that it successfully tested an experimental hydrogen bomb. Now, whether that actually happened or not is still up for debate, but that would have made that the 4th nuclear weapon since 2006. And then in recent studies, they show that North Korea has a capability of creating a maximum of 100 warheads that could be produced by 2020. So with that knowledge, one of our biggest tools we have is to use China. And it kind of sounds a little weird because we haven't always been on great terms with China, but they are still part of the UN. And they are also a huge part of North Korea, as they provide a lot of the food, the fuel, the industrial machinery, as well as energy aid. They prevent Korea from collapsing, and they account for 70% of North Korea's trade. Not to mention, China also has a growing contribution to financial development in Asia and beyond. Moreover, China is the second largest economy in the world after the United States, and even surpassed Japan in 2010. So knowing that, China could play the role as kind of the mediator or even exercise leverage with Pyongyang in time of crisis. As far as efforts from the United States, we haven't really gotten very far. There's been a lot of talk, but there hasn't really been a whole lot of action because there's a lot of factors that have to be considered when it comes to negotiating with North Korea to find a solution. So President Bush and Clinton, while they were in term, they did offer incentives, which include sanction removal in exchange for promises. And then President Obama wished for a strong relation between China and North Korea, as well as North Korea and the United States. And he emphasized that when Pyongyang was ready to have relief and sanctions as well, they would be ready to make a deal. So he's essentially offering the same thing as Bush and Clinton did before. He also stated that could not foresee North Korea wanting to be without its nuclear weapon program. So all bets were pretty much off then. No negotiations can be made if they're not willing to give a little to get a little. So, more in depth about North Korea, though, is that they are spending so much money on nuclears that they are essentially starving the people who live in North Korea. Right now, North Korea is attempting to revitalize its external economic relations, and is spending millions of dollars making nuclear weapons instead of feeding its country. In 2013, it spent about $13 billion, and this left with an unemployment rate, although all remains unchanged. It stayed at 4.10% in 2013, all the way to 14, but the number of deaths related to famine ranges from 200,000 to 3 million, and in between the years of 1995 to 2000, it numbered from 600,000 to 1 million. So a high number of children are starving, which is more likely to lead to functional impairments as adults, which makes them not able to be a productive member of society because it includes delays, impaired cognitive and emotional development, as reduced immune function, which makes them sick. So a lot of the children are forced out to the street or end up as refugees in China, and a lot of the time this is without parents too. So why haven't we reached a solution with North Korea? One of the reasons is it's not taken seriously. When we receive a threat through a video that's sent to a news station, it could easily have been altered, so we're not really sure if it's actually real. And then if it is, we have to think about, well, if it's real, then how real is the threat? Are they actually going to take action? Are they actually going to send one of their nuclear bombs at us? We have to take it in consideration, and a lot of times it's kind of written off as a all fluff and no bite type thing. Another reason is we're not sure how to respond. Again, when we get those threats, it's run through, I'm sure, a million things, whether it's through government or analysts, but in the end, we're not really sure how to respond because we don't know if it should be taken seriously. I also believe that we haven't taken in cultural perspective as well. When it comes to Korea, or rather China or Japan, they have a lot of different cultural differences that we should be considering as well. And I think that could also help maybe break that barrier that we have between the United States and North Korea to find a better solution. But I feel like we're not willing to take everything into perspective just yet, just because of those first two factors of not finding a solution. And then, of course, we aren't sure what's true and what isn't. And then we're currently tied up with other issues, whether we're in Iraq or dealing with ISIS. We have a lot on our plate already. And so this kind of falls on the back burner, which means it's not totally taken off the plate, but it's also not high on the priority either. So it's more complex than we can ever imagine. Not to mention it also includes other countries that could be put in danger. Right now there is a really big strain between North and South Korea, and in a recent article I read that there were these two Olympic gymnasts. One was from North Korea and the other one was from South, and they were seen taking a selfie together. And the article read, "Will they be punished for taking a selfie together?" And that kind of gives you a little bit of a perspective of how much tension there is between the two countries, because two girls who know nothing about what has been happening, or who know something but don't care and are willing to, see past differences, may still be punished just because they're willing to do that. So another reason is we are overstepping our boundaries, and this kind of feels like more of an opinion based, but we also have our problems and problems with other countries that we are dealing with. And one of the reasons North Korea has been so threatening is because they feel like we're overstepping our boundaries and we're getting into the business of somebody else's, and we shouldn't be, which I could definitely see. But in retrospect, we are part of the UN, which includes a lot of countries, and it's kind of our job to kind of all bond together and create this peace between all the countries, and this is part of doing that. So it's kind of a catch-22, because we have to overstep the boundaries, but by doing so, we're also getting ourselves into trouble. So the final reason I'm going to mention that we haven't found a solution is Kim Jong-un, excuse me, considers a lot of what we're doing as an act of war. And I think his idea of what an act of war is a lot different from what we see. We can, like I said, overstep our boundaries, and he is quick to threaten us and say, we're going to press war if you don't stop. So I think that kind of goes with the barriers, is that our ideas differ from somebody else, just like our culture differs from theirs. So why would better globalization help? It could offer up as an incentive for discontinuing the program, which we'd have to make it more enticing or worth it. So we'd have to offer up more than just the ability to interact with all these countries. We'd have to build a trust, which would take a long time. But in the end, it could work out better for a lot of the countries that are currently in tension with North Korea. It wouldn't resolve anything because it's not a quick fix. I don't think there is really a quick fix to this, but we would be working to build that relationship that Obama spoke of. Some of the advantages are global mass media ties world together, reduction of war. Again, we go back to the North versus South Korea tension. It limits cultural expressions, eradicates cultural barriers, and increases free trade between countries. And then the U.S. has provided food and other emergency assistance before in their time of need, but as of right now, it's currently prohibited. We're not allowed to do it. So maybe if we offered it up, we could kind of work to build a relationship that would help find that solution. One of our success stories that we can use in terms of that is actually China, which is kind of ironic. They have industrialized into a superpower, and it almost exploits China by comparative to cheap labor. But import tariffs were cut by 9.4% in 2001, and it has almost fallen to zero over the same period of time. So foreign investments has also reached $53.51 billion, and trade volume in 2004 reached $1 trillion and is now the third biggest trader. The only downside about that is that there are hidden hidden kind of costs behind success. Like, many Chinese live on less than $1 a day. 700 million live on less than two. A lot of the workers over there are working in cramped places, and they're working 60 to 70 hours a week to feed themselves and their families. And they're living in cramped housing. And then, despite trade success, unemployment rate is at 100 to 200 million. And this changes the view of globalization, making it more of a risk. Not to mention, North Korea is also well within a famine state, so failure to succeed would only make things worse, which makes it an even bigger risk. Other risks would include too much aid causing Western influence on other cultures, and then we don't want to be too much of that, because we want to give them the tools, the foundation to grow, and then let them do it themselves. If we cause too much of an influence, that's going to change them completely, and that's not the point of globalization at all. It's to kind of share in between countries to help each other to grow. So what have we learned in conclusion? While globalization could benefit North Korea, it does have its drawbacks, which must be considered first. And then preparations for different reactions and outcome must also be taken into consideration. We also took in that China holds a key not only as an influence, but as a study in development, trade, and technological advancement, and which led to my conclusion that we must admit that options like furthering globalization for North Korea and building relationship via communication may be more of a viable option rather than what we've attempted so far. Having said that, while attempting to communicate has already been tried and failed, we also must consider that North Korea may just remain a threat so long as Kim Jong-un remains in control. So even if we made all these changes, even if we started communicating, it may not be that we can't find a solution. It's just that we can't find a solution with that person. So that's what I have so far. And then, of course, in the corner here at the bottom, that's the picture of the two Olympic gymnasts that took the picture. You have one that's from South Korea and the other one from North Korea, and that was what the article was explaining. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me on this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a little bit more, and I will see you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.